Hey, this is Full Game Prometheus giving you defensive tips. I'm going to share with you basically 4 different defenses that I use online with pretty good success. I'll talk about the pros and cons of each one of the defenses, but I can share with you these are things that I've successfully used before in the past. So we don't know what's going to happen with Madden 22 on how effective these defenses are going to be, but if you have a shell that you can jump into, it's gonna help you dramatically. So I'm actually using the Jets playbook, and one of the reasons why it has a 43. This is one of base defenses. It's also got 34. Some pretty good defenses and stuff like that. And then we have the nickel double A gap, and then we have the 3-3-5 wide defense. So there's basically 4 different defenses I like to do. Let's talk about an old school defense that I've used before previously. And it's out of the 43 defense, and the defense or the shell that I generally will come out of the huddle is going to be the safety blitz. Now, I like to flip the play depending on where my weaker of the 2 defensive tackles. So if I get a really good block shedding defensive tackle on the right side, I'll flip this play to the opposite side. Or conversely, if I've got a number 2 defensive tackle that's a better defensive tackle, I'll flip it. But this is generally how I'll run this particular play. And I'm just going to run this against random cover 2 defenses. So basically what this does is this takes the safeties and put them down in the box. Usually I can base align with this, but you'll see the safeties actually come down in the box. And there's actually multiple ways I'd run this defense. First and foremost, one of the first ways I used to run this defense is I'll go ahead and take each safety and put them into yellow zones. And what this does is it basically puts a bunch of guys in the middle of the field, and it jams up the middle of the field, especially if you've got a guy that runs a lot of like crossing routes and stuff like that. It still forces players to actually go ahead, and it gets a very imposing front. So you've got a bunch of people down in the box, and with those hook zones, they're going to play run fits. So it's really going to shut down the run a lot and force your opponent to actually check down and really try to look for it. So the only problem with this defense is that it does put a lot of pressure on you as your user to play over the middle of the field. So that's the only thing with this defense that I found that it's not very good about, is that you could potentially give up a big play. So I eventually, what I did is you can see right here, I'll see if I can, obviously with the screenplays that can hit, but eventually what I did is to try to protect against plays over the top. I would actually go ahead and take my inside defenders and put them in inside quarters. So it still gave me run fits, but what it did is that it provided me an opportunity to go ahead and clean up the seams a little bit and not allow me to give up a play over the middle of the field. So you can see these guys are actually kind of falling in the middle of the seam, and pretty much lock that play up. Another adjustment you could do is the following. You can go ahead, you take your one guy, put him in a QB spy, take the other guy and put him into an inside third. So it gives you a cover 3 shell. You've got a QB spy with the guy over the middle, and you got a 3-rec hook by the defensive lineman. So this basically kind of clogs up the areas, and it's going to force him to make his reads. Now, a quick adjustment that I would actually make too to catch my opponent off guard is that you can audible into another play, which would be cover 2. And essentially what this does is it puts a cover 2 shell out there, but it keeps the safeties down in the box. So this kind of messes up your opponent's reads a little bit, and now you got a cover 2 shell that you can hit him with. And he's gonna have to make his reads underneath with that. I personally, my preference is not to give my opponent any kind of tell. So what I'll do is I'll take these safeties in the outside corners and actually go ahead and do like a Mabel concept like this, where I'll have a cloud flat, seam flats, and basically go ahead and take my safeties and put them into basically deep halves. And once again, my responsibility is to play the middle of the field, bite down, but also have to play the middle of the field to look for those type of areas. Now, if you got an opponent that's focusing on certain plays, what's cool about the flexibility of this offense is you can actually go ahead and man up your safeties on some of his defenders like this, or some of his wide receivers like this, and this actually messes up his reads a little bit. So now I've got his guys manned up, and it's going to force him to go ahead and do his checkdowns over the top. So that's one of the flexible things that you could do with it. But even better with this defense is that you can cross man your guys, where you can actually have, if he's using a lot of crossing routes, now you've got the safety that's actually going to be on the back side, this is going to mess him up and force him to do his checkdowns, preferably where I can actually spy it. So this is a very effective defense. The problem I don't like about this defense is that there's really no pressure that you can per se get with this defense. The pressure is not as fast as it used to be in previous Maddens. Even if I was to do a linebacker blitz, it's really not as effective as it used to be. So that's one of the reasons why I gravitated away from it. And also, you're using your middle linebacker, so you're not necessarily going to have the best players that are going to help you with this defense. So you have your middle linebacker, and unless you got a guy that's like 90+ speed, that's middle linebacker, and he doesn't have a lot of good change of direction, it's not going to be the best defense out there. But I like the defense because you can really disguise your coverage, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. So let's go and jump into the next defense. Now, the second defense I really started using online a lot was out of the 34 odd, and a lot of times I'll still jump into it. But it's the cover four quarters. And in particular, what I like to do is change my coaching settings. So first and foremost, I'll base align, and then I'm going to go down to my flats. And I'm going to go and take my zone drop flats and put them to either 30 or 25. And I'm going to take my curl flats and put them at 10. And I'm going to leave my hook zones as default. And what I like to do is I like to user either one of my middle linebackers. And it's really easy to set this play up. All we're going to do is take our outside defenders and put them in cloud flats. And what's going to happen now is that I've got these quarters down in the box that essentially are going to take away a lot of the routes or get guys to actually drop into those zones. So what's cool about this defense is that a lot of people just don't read it correctly. And you've got your rec hook in the middle of the field with a linebacker who play a little bit better. But you also have got basically defenders that are going to float out to the zones. And this is also going to provide you really good stout defense because you got at least 7 people in the box to play the defense. So I've got a lot of people to misthrow or misread this defense. So I got this set up. And all I'm going to do is play the middle of the field. And you can see the rec hook, even though he didn't make an animation, he was there to play that. Once again, got the defense set up, showing my opponent some type of blitz. But you can see those corner routes, those sail routes, they're going to be routes that basically are going to get taken away. So one of the weaknesses of this defense is a double move. So I want you to watch basically on how a double move can basically get separation. And that's something you want to have in your back pocket. So if you see a guy that's running this type of a defense, or he's running a lot of quarters defenses, what you want to have in your back pocket is some type of a double move on the outside defenders, preferably something that goes in and out and in, or out and up. And a lot of times what's going to happen is it's going to get, you'll see guys actually get separation over the top. So that's something you want to go ahead and think about. But for a base defense, a lot of players have a hard time with it because it kind of takes away a lot of those crossers. It forces your opponent to go and check down underneath, and it's similar to like a Mabel type defense that's out there. It's just that you've got more people under the box. Now, once again, you've got basically 7 people in the box. You're using a middle linebacker. So if you don't really have a great linebacker core, it's good, but it's a good, nice base defense to use against someone that comes out in heavy sets, not passing sets. To basically you give them a hard time. So let's go and jump into the next defense. Now, next defense I was using a lot is out of the nickel double A gap, and in particular with a defense that some people have a hard time with, but once again you can blow this out of the water if you know the right plays. It is the cover one hole, and you do have to run this a little bit differently. First and foremost, you want to do man align, and you don't really want to be concerned too much about the zone drops. So basically with this defense, you're going to man align. You're going to basically blitz all. And you take your defensive line and shove those guys out. and then basically take your defensive line and spread them out. And then you're going to press an inside press. Now, a lot of times what's going to happen is this guy is going to be over here. And what your responsibility is to take away the free release guy. But what you do is you also do inside coverage adjustments, so you can it takes away any kind of crossing routes. And my responsibility is to take away this tight end. But you can see in this type of situation, even though the quarterback actually took off, you saw the pressure was instantaneous with that quarterback. So that's something that's great about this particular play. So fairly easy to set up. Let's QB contain. We're going to pass commit. And my responsibility is going to be that running back. And I've got a blitzer there because it just kind of preoccupies the pressure. But you can see the pressure comes in hot against your opponent. My responsibility is the running back out of the backfield. You can see the pressure just comes in blazing fast. So he has to get rid of the ball very quick. So this is a good play to use situational against your opponent. You don't want to use it all the time. But it does give you the leverage of knowing that if you needed to get some pressure against your opponent, you can do that. And it's really going to pretty much take away a lot of his reads, so you got that high pressure. Some adjustments you can make on this defense, and this is what I've done in previous versions of running real high pressure defense, is I want to try to avoid any kind of quick outs. So what I'll do is I'll put my one guy in soft squats. And I'll put my other guy in a soft squat right here. And this will actually take away any kind of out routes that someone might want to hit, or a flat zone type concept. And it makes, it just makes it very difficult for him to hit a quick little out route. Or flat routes where basically your flat defenders will be out there. Also, if I anticipate my opponent is going to give me a lot of pressure too, what I could do is I can do a variation of this defense where I'll put curl flats out here, show them the same type of look with the pressure, but now basically what I've got is basically kind of a zone coverage right here. So this is going to mess up his reads a little bit. It's good to mix this in. And I'll show you basically another variation of this type of defense that I've had really good success with online against opponents that had struggled against this man coverage. And it's a very popular defense too. This is something you want to figure into your scheme if you like to run the 3-3-5 wide defense. So you can see right here, pressure got up. So that's one of the disadvantages of it, is that if you do press coverage with this and you do the pressure and it gets picked up, you can get burned for huge plays over the top if you got press coverage against your opponent. So I always try to press just to get my opponent to make a fast read, but you can see he's got basically the blitz is completely covered up a little completely. My defender didn't preoccupy the running back, and as a result, he had plenty of time to beat this man over the top. And even though the ball was misthrown, he's able to get it off. So one of the last defenses I want to show that I had really good success with this year was out of the 3-3-5 wide. And no, it is not the Mike Blitz 3 or the Cover 4 Show 2. But this is a man version. It's the Mike Blitz O. I know a lot of people like to use this as a good blitz to actually have in your back pocket. But when you keep showing people the Mike Blitz O and then give them coverage, it can cause them a lot of issues. So once again, we're going to leave our defense. We're going to leave man aligned. And what I like about this particular defense is that it's very effective against the run. I'm going to run this against the gun bunch, and this is going to include some runs too. So really what you're going to do is you're going to just take your outside defenders and put those into curl flats. And all you're really going to do is you're just going to go ahead and do an inside pass lead. And what is great about this defense is that it's a very simple defense to set up, and then you're going to still have your ability to go ahead and use her. So you're going to use her basically these outside this guy. And what's cool about it is because the nickel 3-3-5 wide provides you some flexibility, you can go ahead and swap out that middle linebacker with your strong safety if you got a good strong safety, giving you better user ability. Another thing you can do is you can go ahead and take your one guy, your defensive lineman, and actually put him in a spy. or a 3-rec hook or something, and that just kind of clogs up the areas a little bit, makes those passing lanes a little bit more difficult. Or you can put them in a 3-rec hook. But what I like about it is just it's going to basically put a lot of people in their passing lane areas that they want, and it makes it difficult for your opponents to set up their defenses fairly simple. So it's one of the reasons why I do like this particular play, is that it's a really easy. It's just a fag defense with man coverages, and it forces him to make decisions on how he wants to throw the ball. The problem, once again, is the deep post routes, and you're not really sending a lot of pressure against your opponent. So, you know, they can hit those crossing routes against you. They can get you off guard. So I would say you probably want to use this as a base defense, but you also want to go ahead and just sprinkle in either just a man blitz or some type of quarters defense too. But I like this defense. I've had really good success with it. I ran into somebody that ran it the entire time against me, and he had a very good offense. So when I was down by you know, a few scores, I started beating it in the second half of the game, but it was too late. The guy actually had a very effective offense, and he was up by a few scores, and it was just knew I could get, you know. But I only had a couple of turnovers and downs. I really couldn't get back into the game with it. So it was a good defense to start out. Just see if your opponent beats you with it. And then you can go ahead and just, you know, you can figure in, you know, the Tampa 2, you can figure in the Tampa 3 and all that kind of stuff. So, guys, I'm going to be looking at another defense. I'm actually labbing a variation of the double A gap. And I'll when I get it pretty much perfected, I'll go ahead and release that as the last defensive tips for the season. But once again, thank you for support, guys. I'll be rolling out more offensive, defensive tips to take your game to the next level and show you some gameplay. So if you do like these type of defensive tips, make sure you smash that subscribe button and also that notification icon, because I'll be rolling out stuff that will be able to carry over from Madden 21 into Madden 22, so you can be more competitive in your leagues and MUT and other things, so you can have the non-meta. So thank you for your support, guys. Until next time.